Previously, several fans left messages requesting an update on the muffin cake. Then I asked for flavor opinions. Most of the requests were for chocolate flavor. So I'll arrange it for today. Muffin cake. It is also one of the room temperature cakes that can be mailed. Its shelf life is relatively longer. Plus, it's simple to make. Once packed, it becomes a lovely little dessert. Of course, it has a dense texture. Then, you can have a whole one. The chocolate flavor is very rich. Today, I will compare two different methods of preparation. The comparison will be at the end of the video. 1 room temperature egg. It weighs 57 grams after being shelled. Granulated sugar, 40 grams. Add a pinch of sea salt, about 1 gram. If using table salt, 0.5 grams will suffice. Room temperature milk, 64 grams. Butter, 46 grams. Melt it directly in the microwave until liquid. Stir after adding until melted. Sift 60 grams of cake flour. Cocoa powder, 18 grams. 12 grams of cornstarch. 15 grams of milk powder. 3 grams of baking powder. If you don't want to sift. Actually, you can mix these ingredients together. And add them in as well. The main reason is to ensure the baking powder is evenly distributed. When making muffins, I don't recommend using too much cake flour. Too much flour will result in a choking texture. This amount of flour is part of our tested recipe. Actually, anywhere between 50 to 60 grams is fine. You can also try using 50 grams of cake flour. The final product will not fail. Don't worry, just make it. The method I'm demonstrating is the simplest way to make muffins. For something a bit more complex, I'll explain it verbally. It involves mixing granulated sugar and salt into the butter until smooth. Then gradually add the egg mixture. Whip it until well combined. Next, add the dry ingredients and mix roughly. Finally, add the milk and mix well. I'm using a mini muffin pan with 35 cups. I've displayed the size of the mold on the screen for your reference. You can bake using paper cups, or use a larger egg cake mold. Both options are fine. Fill them up to 80%. Sprinkle baking chocolate chips on the surface. The oven I'm using today is the Heishi S80. Bake at 170 degrees for 20 minutes. Don't bake it too dry. Just make sure it's completely baked through. This way, the muffin cake will retain more moisture. The texture will be better. Also, the baking time is not fixed. If you switch to a larger mold, then the corresponding baking time will definitely need to be extended. Right? You need to apply this flexibly. Let's take a look at the comparison. You didn't expect this, did you? Their colors will be different. Whipped butter. The muffins made with it will be a lighter color. The reason is actually quite simple. Whipped butter turns white in color. In terms of texture, whipped egg whites will be slightly fluffier. Melted butter in liquid form. The texture will be a bit denser. But the difference is not that significant. In fact, both methods are not complicated. If you work with it in winter, the butter will be harder to soften. So we mostly use the first method. If you don't plan to control costs, don't just place chocolate chips on the surface. Add them to the cake batter instead. The overall cake will have a better texture. You can also add whole pieces of chocolate. When it comes out of the oven, it will have a molten effect.